The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
Back on the other side, what's going on? Appreciate everyone for tuning in again to the latest episode of the Pirate Parlay podcast. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. If you're watching on Twitter, come on to YouTube, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. And everyone who's going to be listening to in podcast form after this, I appreciate you guys. Come catch us live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time here on the Sick Podcast Network. Let's jump right into it. I'm super excited about this draft class. When I was going through and listing my best fits for each round for the Buccaneers, I liked a lot of these guys. Ended up having 5 of 6 of them. The one I missed, I'll talk about later. Can't believe I missed them, but whatever. You're not going to be great. Also hit on a UDFA they signed, and also one of the practice players on there as well. So super excited that I was able to correctly identify and help you guys figure out who the Bucs should be targeting throughout this process, and actually landing on 5 of them was really cool. Really cool moment for me. As my next guest will tell you, I was obnoxious about it all weekend. And let's get him in here without further ado. Sports, from The Athletic, him from the Tampa Bay Times. He's been doing this for a long time. There's really nobody better, in my opinion, and helped me out tremendously starting. I don't think I'd be where I am without the help of one Greg Auman. Greg, how are we doing today?
I'm good, man. Good to hear from you, and fun to look back on a busy weekend here.
Yeah, it was busy to say the least. I will say the food got better as the days went on, so that was good.
Yeah.
But what were your thoughts? What are your initial thoughts on the draft class for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year?
Yeah. First of all, you getting 5 of them is strong. I think like the Tyler Johnson year, I think I had 3 in a mock draft, and I was super excited about that. So there's always some luck involved, but it speaks well to kind of understanding what they like and what they need and all that kind of stuff. Impressed by this class. I mean, it's like it kind of unfolds in front of you, and it's hard to appreciate everything as it happens. But I feel like they, both in the 6 guys they drafted and in the 14 guys they have signed after the draft. Lots of good stories. I mean, draft weekend, as a beat guy, you're always excited just because it's a whole new class of newcomers and stories you get to tell, and personalities you get to find out. And it's one of those where, things go right. You're dealing with them for 4 or 5 years or more. But you get to meet them all in one weekend. So really neat that way. Obviously the Bucs have stressed how good these guys are as people in addition to players. No, it's one of those where, you get a splash player at the top of the draft with a receiver. I think Ibuka is going to be a really fun one to watch for the next couple of years, and then really kind of hit on some needs. There's really good measurables. There's lots of things that make sense. They did so well with the draft a year ago, where I feel like it's hard for them to have the impact and the depth that they had a year ago with Barton and Irving and McMillan and all these rookies that really helped them win a division title last year. I don't think it'll be a draft that has as much impact in terms of snaps and plays, but one that they need in certain spots, and to think about new faces in secondary and help there, and guys working their way into rotations up front on defense, and then receiver. I mean,
We're losing Greg. See if we get him back here. I agree with everything he's saying, though. I don't think you're going to get the same amount of starting potential that you did, but I do think there's at least potentially 4 starters in this draft. We'll see if we can get Greg back once he's driving. So we'll try to get him back. But I think you potentially have 4 starters out of this draft. Akuba, wide receiver 3, potentially taking over if Godwin, something happens to Godwin or Evans. You have that guy right there. I think you'll see a lot of wide receiver 3 snaps. Benjamin Morrison might not crack the starting lineup this year, but if he shows well behind the scenes, it's something similar to Zion McCollum. If there's injuries and he's got to go in and he proves he can handle it, then maybe we're looking at a Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean trade type situation like we did. You've got the guy waiting in the wings here to step up maybe next year, so potential starter there. And if there's injuries for sure, certainly he'll probably get thrown in to the mix as literally the next best. I mean, you're going down the line, Kendall Vildor, They've seen what Tyreek Funderburk, and again, he was a UDFA, should have never been in the game. But they saw as well from Josh Hayes. Morrison, to me, would be the next guy up to take those potential starting snaps. And then Jacob Parrish, I think, will challenge for that starting corner role. And you got a potential starting kick returner, punt returner, Tez Johnson. So, Greg, I was just saying, I agree with you. Like, you're not going to get the same volume, but there are 4 potential starters, I think, in this draft, starting with Akuba, who could slide in that wide receiver 3, which is essentially a starting position in the league. Same thing with slot nickel with Jacob Parrish, who will challenge Izzy. And then you have Morrison, the wild card there. Does he get snapped? Does he have a shot to beat out Dean? Maybe. I don't think so. But if there's injuries and he shows well behind the scenes, maybe it's a Carlton Davis type situation where you feel like you can move on from Dean next year because you have Morrison. And then Johnson as a starting returner. It's not a starting, offense or defensive position, but still a starting position that you have to fill. And right now, I don't really know if they have that guy on the roster outside of who they drafted with Tez Johnson.
Yeah, I felt like it reminded me a little bit of the Eagles a year ago where, the Eagles put a first-round pick into a corner, put a second-round pick into Cooper DeJean, and they had their returning secondary back last year. And it's kind of early in the year. Cooper wasn't necessarily playing a ton on defense, and they were leaning on some vets. And then over the course of the year, you saw the rookie kind of get his bearings and come in and obviously be a huge part of their team. So that's not to say Benjamin Morrison is Cooper DeJean, but I think he can be a guy that they can put more on his plate as the year goes on. And then, like right now, I don't see them trading or moving on from Jamel Dean. But in terms of, he has 2 years left on his contract, and if he's supplanted by a second round pick during this season, they can trade him or cut him after this year and kind of make the move on to a younger guy that way. So yeah, I think again, without having the sheer snaps or starters that last year's draft class had, it'll be a class that can help them, and it'll be intriguing to see if 2 or 3 of these undrafted guys can make the cut as well.
Yeah, and we'll go there because there are some very intriguing names here. I think the biggest one that jumps out, and not from necessarily a talent perspective, but just from a size perspective, is Florida's Desmond Watson, 464. It's funny you actually pointed this out, and so have other people, but they have the heaviest and the lightest player in the draft class, and I think in the league at Tez Johnson 154, and then Watson at 464. Then the big name, I should say, is Shiloh Sanders, obviously because of who his dad is and the whole controversy around Shador this whole weekend. But the 3 guys who I really like, J.J. Roberts, who I had as a best fit for me at safety if they went in the 7th round. He flies to the ball. I think he'll be a demon on special teams. And then the 2 offensive linemen they signed too, and Jake Majors out of Texas. I like Jake Majors a lot. I went with Jonah Monheim for my best fit out of Minnesota. I just liked him a little bit more with his versatility to play guard where Majors has only played center. But really liked him. And then Ben Chukwuma from Georgia State. Both of those guys got aid, which you astutely pointed out that pretty much guarantees at least a practice spot for them. Which one of these guys did you like the best? Who stood out to you, and who are you excited to kind of cover?
Yeah, there's some really cool ones. Chukwuma's one that jumped out right away. I don't know how much you've read up on him, but he literally had never played a football game until 2023
Really?
at all, like not at any level. No football background, is a student at Georgia State. I think he's Nigerian born, tries to walk on in 2020 at Georgia State as a defensive end, gets on the team but doesn't play at all in his first 3 years, switches to offense, and a 2-year starter now, good size, like 6'6", 285, I think. And, literally shut down Mike Green. Mike Green, who has as many sacks as anybody in this draft, didn't get any against Georgia State with Ben Chukwuma on him. So, I think they don't have a lot of young developmental tackle types. So whether it's the 9th guy in the 53 or the best guy in the practice squad, he seems like a guy who could be really good for them. You mentioned Jake Majors. They don't really have a natural backup center on their roster. It'd probably be Raekwon O'Neal. I think the easy thing if Barton went down is that they have Ben Bredesen, the guy who's played NFL center in the NFL. They have Elijah Klein's a guy who could step in. So there's no center. So I think there's And there's some cool guys. I mean, Garrett Green is West Virginia's quarterback for the last 2 years. Kind of realizes after the season he's not going to be an NFL quarterback, so he switches to receiver. He's a guy that ran for 2,000 yards in college, ran a 4.5 40. He joins. I had thought receiver was already a really stacked group, and now you got these undrafted guys like Will Shepard from Colorado and Garrett Green from West Virginia that might be practice squad initially, but could really come along and give them depth beyond the 6-7 on the 53. Even the I'm just starting, but like they have a running back from Mountain Union, and he rushed for 30 touchdowns this past.
All right, looks like Greg's better. Let's try to get him back in here. Yeah, this still happens when they're driving. Let's put him back in, see if he's good. Looks like we lost Greg again. It happens. I did want to ask him who he's most excited about after speaking with them. I think, Tez Johnson would probably be an answer out there. He's just full of energy. We'll see if we can get him back. Might not be able to. But yeah, the rest of this, we got him back. All right, let's see if he's good.
Can you hear me?
We're good.
Sorry about that. I'm driving in the Panhandle, which isn't necessarily the best for wireless signal while you're driving.
We're all good. So I did want to ask you who, after speaking with all the rookies, who like excites you the most, and not as just as like a player, but as someone who, because part of our job is developing relationships and telling these guys stories and stuff like that as well. Who excites you the most after talking with them?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of personality. It's neat. I mean, you saw a genuine. I mean, to talk to Benjamin Morrison. I mean, the emotion he had on that draft call was a really cool thing. His dad is played with Todd Bowles in Washington. Is now the team chaplain for the Arizona Cardinals. He's a guy that was neat to talk to. These tiny guys are always characters, man. It's like to talk to Tez Johnson. Tez was a guy. I was in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and I was talking to Lindsey Rhodes, and Lindsey works with a site called I think it's Semmer Stats or Semmer Sports, and literally Tez Johnson in the history of their number metrics is the number one athlete they have in terms of, it's kind of like an RAS score that they do. Just ridiculous. And when she's talking about him, and as I'm watching him, they're doing one-on-one drills, receiver on DB. And Tez is a tiny guy. He's like 5'8", 154, but can just destroy people and knock people out of their socks one-on-one in the open field. So he's really neat to see. He has, again, for you to be an NFL player at 154 pounds, there has to be a strong amount of inner confidence in you, and he's got it. It's a lot. Honestly, they did this 2 years ago with Devin Tompkins, and DT obviously had a lot of enthusiasm and confidence. They kind of had it last year with Cam Johnson. He was a guy a little bigger, but still like 5'7". So again, I just think it's cool to be 1/3 the size of one of your teammates and still have the physicality to go across the middle and play the way that Tez Johnson does. I don't know if he makes the 53. He's got to beat out some guys that have done this for a couple of years, but it's going to be fun to find out. And on returns, that elusiveness, that shiftiness is definitely something that would help him on a punt return type thing too.
Yeah, it's funny if you look at Watson, who they signed, and the guarantees they gave him. He essentially earned $101 for every pound of weight he has, and Tez Johnson was the extreme opposite with his eventual guarantees is like 313. So it's funny, just the big size. Overall, I'm not going to get into grades or anything with you, but like overall, just what compared to like looking at other teams. If you had to kind of, not a grade, but like a final thought on the draft class, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, this was one of those, I think sometimes you don't get as excited or you don't get as high grades when you stay with the picks that you have. Like Jason, you look back, a lot of his early drafts, he's just trading all over the place, trading up, trading down, adding picks. And this is 2 years in a row they hadn't traded at all. So I think that speaks to them liking the guys that fell to them when they got there, if you will. And, it's one of those where Some of those guys we knew better than others. I had done a Combine Confidential where I talked to about 40 guys that were in the class, and there were 2 or 3 of those guys that I know that are now in this draft class that are really cool guys to talk to and good people. I felt like speed for their size was a consistent theme. Um, to look at, Elijah Roberts is a guy that's just ridiculously quick for his size. David Walker, the small school kid from Central Arkansas, again, just has some real quickness for a guy his size. Obviously, Tez is fast. Obviously, Ibuka's got some speed to him. So I just felt like speed everywhere on the field, even in the bigger prospects. Kind of met their needs. I think everybody wanted them to get a linebacker, and they didn't. But this really wasn't necessarily a great linebacker draft. Once they got past about round 2, there was only a handful that you would have really even been thinking would come in as an appreciable upgrade on Dennis and Walker and probably the 2 of the top 3 there. So if you have a pick that's upgrading your 4th linebacker, it's essentially a special teams pick.
Right.
And beyond not hitting all the positions we thought they might in terms of hitting a safety, hitting a linebacker, I thought they did a really good job with 6 picks to get 6 guys that are in good position to help them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And, they added some guys, hopefully, to fill those roles on the offensive line and safety. And linebacker, you knew it was a bad draft when guys that were, people were enamored with the Bucs, guys like Chris Pupal, guys like Jeffrey Bassa, Barrett Carter, Teddy, these guys all went late in the draft. They all went in the 5th round. There was a clear drop-off between Campbell, but his medicals were such a red flag. I don't know if the Bucs even had him on their board for the 1st round. Carson Schwechlinger was the 2nd best linebacker in this class, I believe. But then you look at him, 1 year of starting experience, was a special teamer before that. And then Demetrius Knight, obviously the 3rd linebacker to go there. To the Bengals, 25 years old, has some limitations in movement, skill coverage. And Nick Martin, I felt like was overdrafted. He's the only other player that went in the top 100. Wasn't a good year. So,
if they're worried, if they're worried about linebacker, I feel like there's still vets they can go get. There's a couple guys that have had 100 tackle seasons that are unsigned right now. Wouldn't be expensive to get. If they want to add someone, they can. J.J. Russell is sitting out there. I feel like he's a guy they waited on, and maybe they bring him back just as familiar depth because they didn't really get somebody in the draft. The guy that got in the draft is a guy named John Bullock from Nebraska. Again, kind of about the same as some of the linebackers they've gotten after the draft last couple of years. He's not going to go crazy, but would be right there in that mix for that, fourth inside linebacker spot come August.
Right. Yeah. And we'll still have those 2 other waves of free agency after June 1st, right before the training camp, and then obviously the cut down. So a lot of good options for the Bucs. Same thing at safety. There's a bunch of guys. So if they want to supplement with veteran leadership there, especially after spring work, that's something they can do before the draft. Greg, I want to thank you so much for popping on. It was a blast hanging out with you for all 3 days again. And doing the draft with you again. Thank you for everything you've done for me and helped me with in my career. And we'll have to get you on soon again.
All right, man. Thanks again for having me. Have a good one.
You too. Bye. Greg Auman, ladies and gentlemen. I owe that man a lot. He's awesome. If you think he's great on X, Twitter, or anything else, he's even better in person. He is one of the GOATs of Tampa Bay media. Going to bring in a couple other GOATs. They're just not highly recognized yet because I don't know. Because you guys are weird. But if you want to talk about one of the GOATs of just down-to-earth, relatable Bucs fans, knows his stuff, brings it every time he comes on, has an amazing following, fan base that's loyal to him. We'll talk about Tampa Tones of Buccaneers because he's one of the GOATs in my opinion. And if you want to talk about one of the best guys that breaks down film like no other, whether that's game film, whether that's draft film, whether that's free agent signing film. He's pretty smart as well. He's almost a PhD of breaking down film, I would say. You're talking about Michael Pless from Real Bucs Talk.
What's up, guys? How are we doing?
What's going on? How are we doing?
Feeling good.
I'm excited.
I'm excited. 3 wide right here. We've never been 3 wide on the pod. This is the first time.
Yep. First time for everything.
Me or 1 and 2. First time for everything, guys. We'll start from from left to right. We'll start with Tones. Just your overall thoughts on the draft class.
I thought it was fantastic. A couple surprises. I didn't have two wide receivers in my playbook, but when you break it down at day's end, it makes total sense. One of them being the return man he is in Tez. When you watch the highlights of Tez, he looks like he's literally straight out of a video game of Madden. I watch a lot of Big Ten football, being in the Midwest, being a Penn State guy. He put Penn State defenders on ice skates last year in that Big Ten championship game. Many short catches over the middle that he had big runs after. And that Penn State defense had a handful of guys drafted early on in this 2025 NFL draft as well. So I'm excited to see what gadget type plays he brings to the offense and what he does on punt returns. Our punt return team was terrible last year. Nothing against Trey Palmer, but I think we have room for big upgrade there. And I think Tez could bring that to the table. Also an incredible story, incredible human being. Very happy for him. And then day one, sitting there, pretty much everybody mocking defenses. I think I read 20 mocks and about 3 of them had wide receivers, 4 of them had wide receivers. And then there you go. Jason Light gets his guy and makes perfect sense. A guy like Emeka could come in if Godwin's not ready day one. And he can help fill that void. And Mike Evans, I know that we want him to be a Buck for life. I know that we think he's going to be around forever. His deal's coming up, so you never know how that plays out. That's always 2 guys you got to keep an eye on. And remember that 4-game stretch last year where Baker had seemingly nobody to go to. Evans went down. Godwin went down.
The Chiefs game.
Yeah, I was there live Monday Night Football.
Ryan Miller catching game-tying touchdowns. So
yeah, you had Ryan Miller catching game-tying touchdowns. You had Marquez Callaway on the active roster getting some snaps on the field. So couple of crazy things there, but I think those 2 are phenomenal pieces. And how can you go wrong? My favorite pick from this draft, and I love all of them, but Parrish is going to be an incredible kid for this defense. I mean, this reminds me of when we got Dean and Davis. You know, we got 2 guys right there, 2 young cornerbacks, and I think Parrish and Morrison have the same young future, the young, bright future that those 2 had. So I'm excited to pair Morrison and Parrish. I think Morrison will develop into his own over time. I think he becomes a starter next season, kind of playing some big roles and learning some lessons this year. Remember when Jamel Dean was a rookie? Seattle absolutely cooked him. They burnt him. They ate his lunch. They took his money, right? That's going to happen time to time from rookies, but I do think Parrish and Morrison learn a lot this year, and it'll really help their development. Now, as far as defensive pieces, the edge, a D lineman we draft, just good value. I think David Walker, and he's a frat brother of mine, as he's a Pi Kappa Alpha member as well. So shout out to him. Yeah, you know, low-key frat brother. I'll see if I could get that recognition, but we'll see. But just overall, grade A class. And the kid from SMU, you watch his film, you start to wonder why he lasted so long almost, but and then you read his numbers and stats. Him and David Walker have wowing numbers. I know Walker played at lesser competition, but 82.5 tackles for loss with him. Then you look at Elijah Roberts, and he had the most pressures in the country, not in his conference. By the way, SMU's moving up in the world. They play in the ACC now, so impressive regardless. But in the country in the last 2 seasons. So overall draft class, hard not to give it an A. It was just that good in my opinion.
Roberts killed me because I looked at him as an edge rusher. I was like, he doesn't really fit as an edge rusher. He doesn't really fit as a traditional 5 tech with his size 6'3". You know, usually you want a bigger guy there. He doesn't really fit with his size as a 3 tech. So I'm like, I don't know. You know, and they didn't have any pre-draft communication with him. He was their Kalijah Kancey this year, just kind of out of nowhere. So I didn't look at him, and kicking myself for doing it. Cause now once you go back, you do take a hard look at him. You're like, oh wow, this kid can do a little bit of everything. Like, he's super versatile. That one hurt, missing that one. Cause I didn't even look at him. It's not like I didn't, not that I had him as like in my list of guys, cause I had my fits and I had my list of guys on the side. Didn't even have him there. So, but plus your thoughts on the draft class, and then we'll go through each prospect and kind of take a closer look at them too.
Yeah, I mean, they got good football players. I think that's what you sum it up to, and that was important, you know. And you know, a lot of people were talking about the first round, yes, forcing defense, and defense was pretty much the rest of the way. They got, you know, corners, they got defensive pass rush, you know, defensive line as far as that goes. But But I think when you look at it, they just got, really solid football players that can come in and contribute right away. And they didn't force any position. And I think that is important, especially when you look at the linebacker position. You and Greg were talking about it perfectly with how, I think they liked a few guys, but they didn't love any of them. Like they just, Jihad Campbell, I thought if he didn't have the medical concerns, probably would have been the pick maybe. It just didn't work out that way. And then the same thing you go throughout the draft. Yeah, sure. I was hoping through it all, hoping for Chris Paul Jr., but they just didn't like him enough. And then, Jeffrey Bossa, maybe Demetrius Knight, if he makes it there at 53, maybe he's in consideration, but I just don't think they liked or loved any of these guys enough to take them over what they got. So yeah, really good class. The one concern I see is can Emeka Egbuka be a true number one? I think that's what is going to have to play out, and we'll see what happens. I think they feel like he can, play all three spots, which is great. And I think he has that upside, but you kind of have like a log jam at your slot receiver position. So I think we're going to have to see some development, and hopefully, him and McMillan can play outside a little bit more and grow into those spots.
Yeah, I think that's the plan too. Talking to them, talking to the Bucs staff, they feel like Akuba can play outside as well. Inside, he's done his best work inside, but has that versatility. We saw J Mac play outside too. We didn't get to really extensively see that and him really kind of excel at that. When Godwin and him were on the field together, it really kind of happened. His ascension came after that. But a lot of teams wanted to pay Chris Godwin after going through a torn ACL and a dislocated ankle to be their wide receiver one.
Right.
I know Bucs fans are spoiled that had Mike Evans for so long. So, that's to them, Chris Godwin is wide receiver 2. He's really a wide receiver 1B. And that was really shown throughout this offseason where teams were willing to pay crazy amount of money just to get him to be their wide receiver 1. So I'm with you. I think his best fit is in the slot, but if you got Chris in the slot, he's going to have to figure out a way to be utilized as well. But they're going to do that anyways. Mike Evans will play a bunch of slot. He'll play outside. They're going to be able to go in 4 wide receiver looks. They'll be able to do a lot of fun stuff. And then if they go spread and you got Tez Johnson on the field there, creating some space for him to work in. There's some, or even 4 wide with Bucky. I mean, there's some really fun things I think this offense could do. And one thing I talked about it on your podcast the other day, last Friday night. What it does is it keeps them from being stagnant. They're not an offense where teams like, oh, the Bucs brought everyone from their offense back. Let's turn on the 2024 tape. You can't do that. You cannot do that now. Not only do they have a new offensive coordinator, which there's going to be some new wrinkles anyways, but the personnel is completely different now. And they've got a guy who you have to kind of know where he is because he'll beat you, especially that short and intermediate range with some real ability on that third level too. Yeah, man, I thought this class was great. We'll go one by one through each of these guys. Just kind of throw out my scouting report, and then we'll get more defined thoughts from you guys. We have talked about them a little bit, but we'll get some more defined thoughts. First pick for the Bucs, Emeka Egbuka, Ohio State, 6 foot, 201 senior, true 4-year senior. I wrote on him. Egbuka is a pro-ready complete receiver with excellent football IQ. He knows how to set up routes and dictate coverage to gain separation and get open. One of the best separators in football. He displays tremendous ball tracking abilities, skills to turn and locate the ball and high point the catch with strong hands. He's always working back to the quarterback and was a threat in the red zone. On the flip side, he can get redirected and press coverage by more physical corners. Doesn't have high end acceleration and can be a little tight-hipped in and out of his breaks. He's not much of a yak threat, and though he's willing, he'll struggle sustaining blockers. Finished as the all-time receptions leader. He was a senior captain. The 205 receptions was the record, and finished his final year, senior year, with 81 receptions, 1,011 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He also has value as a kick and punt returner as well. We'll start with Pless. Emeka Ibuka. Kind of dive in a little bit more. You did the tape breakdown. Just what did you see when you were watching that?
Yeah, so first things, like you said, a very polished receiver, excellent route runner, has the ability to separate. I think that's what makes him really unique because his separation skills are top notch. And I think that's what you're looking for in this offense. That's what they're all about. They're trying to, create that separation. And obviously that makes it easier for Baker Mayfield. So I think you're just getting a very good IQ player that can get open for your quarterback and make it easier on him. Tough blocker as far as in the run game, does a good job of, again, I think he has that versatility to play all three wide receiver positions, whether it's the Z, the X, or the F there inside. So lot to his game. I think there's still things he can get better at. You want to see him get a little bit more better play strength, especially when, trying to get open underneath against press coverage. I think that's something he's got to work on. And again, that's something that I think he can develop as his body matures and gets more strength. So, really good hands, probably one of the best hands in the class. And he does a really good job of making those tough contested catches, especially in tight spaces along the sideline. Toe tap ability, keeps his feet in bounds, so that's good. And yeah, I just think overall he's a really good player. I had him rated higher than Ted McMillan, who went 8th overall. So when you look at the receiver you're getting just a stud as far as person goes, first and foremost, and then you're getting a very solid receiver that has potential to grow into, a number one or at the very least a solid number two for you. And yeah, I think as a Bucs fans, you have to be happy about that.
Yeah, I definitely. He was up there for me. I think whether you ranked him number 2, number 3, the Bucs got one of the best receivers in this class and a true difference maker as well. You look at some of the other guys and they're more complementary pieces. He's got that upside again to be a true number 1 selection for the Buccaneers and wide receiver down the line. Obviously, no time soon. What do you feel like that means, Tones? And we heard that from Jason that Chris Godwin's on track. There's been no setbacks. But what do you feel that means for the Bucs wide receiver room this year? Do you feel like it's something that they felt like they needed to have an insurance option in case he wasn't back? Was it more about, hey, Mike Evans is talking about 2028 retiring right now. That's all, he'll be retired by 2028. That means 2 seasons left, and I know Mike. And if I do know him, he's chasing 2 things: Super Bowl and Jerry Rice's records. That's what he wants, that 1,000-yard streak, that most 1,000 yards ever. I think it's at 13 years, right? He's at 11. So he needs 2 more to tie that, which would be 2 more seasons, 2028. He wants to either tie that or he wants to eclipse that. I think he'd be happy doing either thing. He's playing for Super Bowl. He's playing for legacy. Like, that's what he's playing for. He's not playing for money. We know that. But again, his time is finite. What are your thoughts on Akuba in this year with the Buccaneers? Was it Godwin insurance? Was it life after both of these guys? Or was it this guy's just too good to pass up?
I think it could be a little bit of all 3 of those things. If you piece them together, I think that creates kind of the perfect puzzle for Akuba. And you look, again, I'll bring it up, the Bucs 4-game stretch last year when they went down to the Ravens, the Falcons, the Chiefs, the 49ers, all pretty good football teams. I know the Niners eventually bottomed out towards the end of the year, but at the time, they were still hanging around 500. Defense ultimately hamstrung them, right? But if their offense was good enough, they could have at least won 2 of those games. But again, they couldn't score in key times in those games, couldn't find anyone to get open. And that's because you're always going to count on, as good as they are, Mike Evans, more so Chris Godwin, missing football games. It's just got to be built into the plan, especially in a 17-game season now. These guys are probably going to miss 5+ games at least on any average year. And then, as you said, he is that good. He's skillful. If you watch a lot of Ohio State last year, although Jeremiah Smith got all the love, got all the hype, he was right up there with him in terms of playmaking abilities. in the playoff run, he was huge. In that Notre Dame championship game, he had a couple of big-time catches against Tennessee and Oregon. He had really good showings as well. So it's not like he was just, he has good talent. He has good upside. He was a crucial part of Ohio State's championship team. So he knows how to play. He knows how to win. He's a great insurance policy. And as much as we all love Mike Hare, and I think he will retire a Buck one day, I think Jason Light will ensure that happens. Sadly, football is a weird game. You never know. Any given play, a career-altering injury could occur, for better, for worse, obviously, but it's sad stuff. And I think this gives him the ultimate insurance policy. McMillan, as a rookie, got banged up as well. He missed a handful of games last season. So it seems like Bucs always have a hamstring problem. And I think this just gives him another tool in the shed. And I'm not dissing the other guys, Sterling Shepard, Trey Palmer, Ryan Miller, Cam Johnson, all of those cats.
You mentioned Ryan Miller. He's the only wide receiver that did not miss time for the Bucs last year. Rakim Jarrett missed time. Trey Palmer missed time. Sterling Shepard missed time. Cam Johnson went on IR. I think Rakim Jarrett was on IR. The only receiver that did not miss time last year was Ryan freaking Miller.
Yeah, and those guys are nice step pieces, but when they got to step into the big time roles, A, are they going to be available? As you just said, they all missed time, and B, they're not the type of guys anymore who you want as your number ones and twos. Could you imagine, at least, say, if Evans and Godwin, knock on wood, do go down, you have Ibuka, you have McMillan as 1 and 2s. That's still pretty damn good. You could get fancy with Devin Colt mixed in there, maybe potentially fill in some red zone tick as well. So I think this Bucs team set themselves up for not only insurance depth policies, but a lot of playmaking ability. And I'll relate to it to 2020 again. Look at all the playmakers the Bucs had their Super Bowl season. There just was never too many pieces in the shed. You had Antonio Brown, Gronk, Evans, Godwin, and I'm not comparing this team to that team, but I think the piece depth is almost near neck and neck with how many they go deep in the shed. So I'm going to really be interested to see how Grizz the Wiz, we'll call him, gets the most out of these guys. I think he's going to have some very, very easier opportunities at his behalf because of all the pieces he has to use. Nothing comes easy in this league, but as long as you put a little bit of that Liam Cohen magic from 2024 into this talented offense in 2025, I think this Bucs team will be just fine. So I'd say a little bit of all three.
Yeah, and after night one, you either had people who loved the pick or people who were hated the pick. And I think more skewed towards hating the pick. Our friend Rhett from Cane and Fire podcast, he was at the Bucs draft party and posted a video of people just draining booze on the selection. Not happy with it all. And I get it. A lot of people say, all right, our problems were on defense last year. Our problems were on defense. We scored all these points. Why do we need to add more offense? But when you look at and break down the draft and what it was, everyone said this is a very bad year for high-end talent. I think Ibuka was one of those guys. He's one of those guys, and at 19 was one of the best players available there. More so than guys like Jihad Campbell, who went to the Eagles on a flyer. More so who guys like Donovan Ezeraku fell all the way out. Malachi Starks was really the guy I was honed in on. He went to the Ravens, which is incredible fit for him. Though they're going to get him and Kyle Hamilton. My goodness. But, it made a lot of sense because of everything that Tones just laid out, everything that you just laid out, but also he's best player available. You take that guy. So I was happy with it. A lot of Bucs fans weren't. I feel like they've come around now that they've got to listen to the kid, watch some highlights, but nothing really kind of made that more true than what they did on day 2. Other than that, linebacker was a big one. A lot of fans thought, they quelled their needs with Hassan Reddick at edge rusher, bringing Anthony Nelson back, gave them 4. They liked that. They liked some of the younger guys in Watson, Ramirez that are still on the roster. But corner was a spot because before the draft, if something happened to Zion, something happened to Jamel, you're putting Kindle Vildor and Bryce Hall, who's coming back from his own season-ending surgery in there. Yeah. They went doubled up at the position. They went first with a perimeter guy who could also play some inside in Benjamin Morrison. Another one of my best fits. I had him in the 3rd round because the medicals I thought would push him down a little bit. Bucs were comfortable enough to take him in the 2nd. I did mention he could go higher than this, but Benjamin Morrison at Notre Dame cornerback, 6 foot, 193, junior year for him. Morrison has natural feel for coverage, showing excellent leverage in active hands and press and good awareness in trigger and zone. He's patient and off the coverage and has excellent route recognition skills and processing speed to read route combinations. He's a ball hawk that tracks the ball incredibly well and is competitive through the catch point. However, he displays tight hips, needs refinement in his tackling technique, can get grabby when he gets beat, and he'll struggle to get out blocks with just average play strength. Medical concerns are real with 2 hip surgeries and a shoulder surgery in the past 4 years. But in 6 games last season, he had 20 tackles, 4 pass breakups, and 27. But he has 27 deflections and 9 interceptions over his 3 years there. Again, Bull said he wanted ball hawks at the combine. Morrison is known for his ball skills, knows the family, played with his father in Washington, inside, outside. According to the Bucs, the hip looks good. It was more of like a cleanup thing than an injury thing. He decided to have it done instead of someone telling him he had to have it done. So we'll start with you again, Pless, because you broke down the film. Tell me what you saw on film. Am I accurate in my scouting report, or is there something that I'm off on?
No, I think that was pretty, detailed and accurate. When I looked at his tape, I saw a first-round player. So yes. I think to get him at 53, it's quite the value and a steal, to be honest. When you look at his injury history, and I did some research as far as, in the high school, this was it was the bilateral. Yes. So you had basically you have like growth plates in there that I guess for his body, they just weren't like fitting properly. So you had to have surgeries on that and to fix it. And, the second time, like you said, it was more of a cleanup situation. So I think, yeah, there is a little bit concerned because of like the cartilage and stuff like that could tend to lead to other injuries. But I think for the most part, you can bypass that with, good training and obviously some, supplements that he could take that I think the training staff will have him on to make sure to prevent, any further injuries. But when watching the tape, I loved him. I absolutely loved him. I thought he was physical, good press corner. Some play strength I think he can build up on and get better there. But he was really good as far as just making plays on the ball and being a really good player as well. Did we lose Jason?
And Tones for you.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I had children breaking in. I was like, get out of here. I didn't want to do it on camera. But with Tones, with you, I mean, you talk about Benjamin Morrison. Bucs were calling for Jamel Dean's head this offseason, calling for his head. Then they saw smart ones saw the contract numbers being doled out there to guys who are much older and have an injury history and much more expensive. And smart ones realized, okay, maybe this wasn't the one to go for a cornerback. There were some good cornerbacks in the draft class. I think somebody reported that they swung out and missed on one that they were potentially targeting. Either way, Jamel Dean, when healthy, is one of the better press man coverage cornerbacks. You had an interesting stat, I think, about when the Bucs don't have Jamel Dean. Their record, did you say it's like 1-5 last year when he didn't play, something like that. So drafting Morrison gives them some security there as well, but also some ability for the future. When you look at the cornerback room, how do you think this shakes out? Is Jamel Dean battling Benjamin Morrison? Is Benjamin Morrison coming in here to kind of develop for a year, and then we'll see how that shakes out? Or is, besides injury, is there a path for him on the field right away?
Yeah, I think he's going to, quote unquote, kind of develop this year. He's going to play a lot. He's going to get a lot of snaps in, don't get me wrong, but I still think it's Jamel Dean's year to prove to the team, hey, I'm still, and maybe to other teams, kind of the test year for him to say, hey, I could still lock it down. And why not? The Bucs are getting value out of his contract at this point. You alluded to it. A lot of free agent cornerbacks, look at Carlton Davis and the amount of money he got paid in New England. He's making upwards north of $20 million plus a season. I mean, the Jamel Dean contract suddenly looks valuable for a team like this. And, he'll probably be available 10 to 12 games-ish if, history repeats itself. But in those games he does play, the Bucs always win more when Jamel Dean is on the football field. Whether you love him or not, he's one of those cornerbacks who could go up with a wide receiver 1, with a wide receiver 2, and he can make some good plays on him. So I think Benjamin Morrison's going to more so learn this year. Now, will he have to step in like a Dean did his rookie year and have some learning lessons potentially? Yes, absolutely. So I think Benjamin Morrison will have to probably start a handful of games, but I think it's going to be more of the developmental season for him. You got Zion on one side, you got Dean on the other, which great company for Morrison. Two guys you could learn from. Zion, he had nothing come easy his first couple of years. He took a big step last year. Now he's going to take another big step this year. So that's kind of the trajectory you hope to be on. And, Zion was hinted at getting a contract extension. So odds are that might be coming sometime this offseason, and Benjamin Morrison would be wise to follow his type. So I think he's going to be more so of a depth piece this year who does play a good bit. Not saying he's not going to play at all. And then I think in 2026, the Bucs plan for him to take over that starting mold. You'll have your options with Jamel Dean. You could turn him loose. You could roll it over to the young cats at Morrison, Parrish, and McCollum at that point and kind of have no need for Dean. Or if Dean does prove himself, you could still kind of keep him around on a team-friendly type deal because he's still cheap. So Benjamin Morrison, to me, is more developmental in the year 2025. But he's going to have his learning moments, and you kind of want him to get those. Not that you want him to have bad games at all. That's not what I'm saying. But you do want him to have those learning moments.
Shake the rust off. He hasn't played since early in the season. Shake the rust off. Get out there, make some mistakes, learn and grow, and develop into hopefully our starter for the foreseeable future. I totally agree with you.
And the NFC South is going to give him that with guys like Olave. The Falcons have their weapons, and the Panthers are building a nice offense.
Yeah.
So.
If you guys are just tuning in, appreciate you for joining another episode of the Power Parlay podcast here on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm JC Allen, your host. I'm joined with two special guests, Tampa Tones of the Buccaneers and Michael Pless of Real Bucs Talk. We're going through this draft class, and we're now headed to the third round. Again, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. If you're watching on Twitter, jump over to YouTube, like, subscribe, turn notifications if you want. We're live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. right here on the Sick Podcast Network. The third round brought another best fit for me. I actually had him as the Bucs best fit in the second round. He really picked up some steam towards the end, or should I say draft board started to catch up. And there were some, analysts who thought he could go. Dane Brugler was one of them as early as the second round. A couple other guys had him there as well. But my scouting report on Parrish was Jacob Parrish, Kansas State, 5'9", 191, true junior. Parrish has excellent footwork at the line to slow down, press, and at the top of the route to redirect receivers. He displays fluid hips, excellent body control, short area quickness, and twitch to change direction suddenly. Despite his height, his frame is well built, and he doesn't shy away from physicality in the press or the run game. In fact, I think he seeks it. He shows good anticipation to jump lanes, processes complex route combinations quickly, and has a closing burst to challenge the catch point. Pretty much, he sees it. He knows it's coming. He bursts to try to get to that interception, reading those eyes and reading the route, recognize it. Film junkie. That's what that says to me. Despite that, he doesn't have the ideal height for an outside corner and will struggle with bigger receivers in the red zone. Can be susceptible to double moves and can get caught peeking in the backfield too frequently in zone. He finished his junior season with the Wildcats, racking up 50 tackles, 2 for loss, 8 pass breakups, and an interception, but he had 4 picks and 13 pass breakups in 2023. He's playing a little bit more in the slot, I believe, this year, more outside last year. Plus will be able to back me up on that. I put how he fits. Parrish has quickly risen up the boards with his versatility and physicality at the line, along with the route at the line, along the route, and in run support. He doesn't meet the typical size profile the Bucs look for outside, and a move to the slot might fit his skill set better, but many teams see him as an outside corner. Flexibility would give the Bucs backups at effectively 2 positions as he develops a feel for the NFL game. Tremendous speed, 4.35 40. And has shown improvement in his 3 years at K-State. Coaches raved about how he just got better, and he was brought in for a 30 visit. Plus, does the scouting report match the tape? What did you see when you watched this guy play?
Yeah, real quick, one more thing on Benjamin Morrison. I expect him to compete right away. And I
Okay.
could see
Oh,
him,
wow.
I could see him earning a starting job just because he's that technical of a corner. So I just want to put that in there. I think
Put it out there. You guys heard it first. Clip that.
Yeah.
Put that up. Plus says Benjamin Morrison is a starting cornerback day one.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's just so technically gifted, very smart player. But to Jacob Parrish, again, another steal. I thought he was going to be.
How you just. I'm going to stop you before you even went in there. You said Jacob Parrish. You could tell, like, just a little head, like, you love this guy, don't you?
Oh man, I love him. Yeah, because I think he was another second round player that the Bucs got in the third round. Love his tenacity, love his physicality. I think he's a perfect slot corner. Gives you that versatility if you need like an absolute emergency. He could play outside for you, but fits what they want to do defensively as far as playing more press man coverage. I think he's a really good player at the line of scrimmage. Can come in on blitzes. He can help you in run support. And then as far as like in his zone coverage, I agree with you. Sometimes his eyes need a little bit more discipline. Sometimes he gets a little bit too caught up with the quarterback's eyes and can get, a little off balance there. But yeah, I love his game. And I think he's got the skill set. There's some things he can, work on, sometimes separation he allows just because he's not the biggest guy. He doesn't have a lot of length to him, but he's just a fighter, absolute fighter, dog, has the wrestling background. And whenever you draft guys like that, we've seen it with the Buccaneers, they usually work out. Graham Barton, I think, had a wrestling background. Tristan Wirfs, same thing. Offensive lineman, usually that's what their background is. But to have it in a cornerback, especially a small corner, yeah, I mean, you just love to see it. And I think he's your starting nickel. I think he comes in, and I think you push Christian Izzy into that backup safety role where it kind of fits him well. And he can be, maybe a nickel that, subs in for Parrish if needed. But yeah, I like this guy to play right away as well.
Yeah, and you look at it, Emeka Egbuka, a lot of people talk there maybe 12 to 15 first round, true first round grades. He's got one of those by almost everybody. So you look at that as you got a true first round pick in the first round. You got should have been a first round pick in the second round. And in the third round, by you, you got a second round pick.
Yeah.
Value so far. So the Bucs are getting tremendous value just on the first 2 days in the draft. Plus said that he thinks he's going to challenge Christian Izzy to be the starter and win that job. Are you in agreement? Do you think that he wins?
And Tyke's going to safety. So yeah, I think that's confirmed. Yeah.
Tyke is that is another thing too. With them not drafting the safety, drafting the nickel cornerback as high as they did, Tyke Smith is your new Buccaneer safety. Pencil him in there. But is it Parrish or is it Izzian? Who do you think comes out the dog on that one? Talking about an undrafted free agent versus a third round pick. One's shown he can do it in the league at a high level. The other one hasn't shown anything yet. Where are you going, Tones?
Well, yeah, I think it was known. Todd Bowles pretty much made it known a couple months back that Tyke was going to take the safety gig and run with it. So I did have the Bucs taking 2 cornerbacks in my mock and avoiding inside linebacker. Actually, didn't get the picks right, but I had them punting on inside linebacker and going with 2 DBs. So I love the Parrish fit. I think it helps give their defensive back room complementary pieces to move around. Now Izzian could kind of be more free, and you could use him more of wherever, roaming abilities. You could use him in the nickel at safety, more of a depth piece, whatever it might be. I agree with Pless where, Tyke's moving to safety, that's known, and then Parrish is going to be that nickel to me. I think he could start day one. I really do. If you watch his tape, if you watch his highlights in college, just get as a pit bull, a bulldog. He makes some big time hits, and he gets physical. He goes right up there with the wide receiver. He gets his hands in his face, in his vision, makes it very tough to catch footballs on Parrish. Very, very high profile at Kansas State. If you guys watched Kansas State last year, it was actually their defense who kept them in ball games. He was a big part of that. So I think he's going to come in day one, compete for that nickel, and I think he could run away with it. I don't see why not. I think he could really take it by storm, and I think that helps the Bucs defensive backs all around. Izzian is a beautiful piece to have. He could be a chess piece type. You could play him on the board wherever then at that point. And I think an underrated aspect as well then is going to be these defensive back blitzing schemes that Todd Bowles comes up with. I know we already talked about Morrison, but Benjamin Morrison could blitz, he could get off the edge as well. And you can kind of leave more trustable one-on-ones at that point. If you got a Winfield blitzing, if you got a Morrison blitzing, you could use Parrish comfortably one-on-ones, have Dean, McCollum in one-on-one. So the value of having these defensive back pieces is incredible. And Parrish is the type who's a great tackler as well. He's going to be a guy who could tackle in space, on screens, on reverses, on end arounds. It's going to be a beautiful thing to see. So Parrish is going to wrap up a ball carrier and not let him go, something that these Bucs secondary pieces have had troubles with the past couple of years. Nothing against some of those other guys they had, but Parrish is, once you run into Parrish, you ain't getting around him. Let's put it like that. So I think he's the perfect fit, and I think he will start with nickel. I think I'm in agreement with Pless on that Parrish might be a day one starter when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like Izzy a lot. I like what he brings, but having him as that third safety off the bench, having them as that, for second or third nickel cornerback coming in, if you move Tyke around, I think that provides you the best value and rounds out your nickel. And he can play outside corner in a pinch. We learned that last year too. So I don't think he's going anywhere. I just don't think he, anywhere, but maybe out of the starting lineup at least. Day four was a grind, man. It was such a long day.
Day three.
I know why you didn't do a RBT stream for day, and I know why you cut yours short, because man, the 78 picks from the 5th round to the 7th round were just brutal. But the Bucs took care of us. We had filet mignon and airline chicken on day 3, so they hooked us up. Brisket on day 2. Day 1 was not great food, but anyways, day 4 they came back on the clock at pick 121, and this is where I absolutely lost my mind in the media room and got stared at by everyone who's been doing this for years, because your boy went to Wendy's and got a 4 for 4, 4 in a row, best fits with David Walker out of Central Arkansas for my 4th round best fit for the Bucs. Again, I was super excited that I was able to kind of not just hit it, but identify guys that the Bucs could be interested in. And whether, some people are doing 1 or 2 or whatever, I did 1 for each round, which obviously gives me a bigger chance to hit on these. There were still a lot of players to consider at each one of these rounds to kind of rule out, especially that the Bucs had meetings with and showed interest in. So super excited I was able to land another one here. 4 in a row. I was on cloud 9. David Walker, Central Arkansas, 6'1", 263, 6-year senior, but those are kind of skewed. His first year was a redshirt year. His second year got wiped out by COVID. So really just a senior year playing in production. He spent 2 years at Southern Arkansas before transferring to Central Arkansas. And he did that because it was just a better program at a higher level. But he stayed and came back his senior year because he produced last year really well, but he stayed back his senior year because his brother had committed to that school. So 2 things you want to do is leave a legacy behind as one of the best pass rushers to ever come out of Central Arkansas, but also to play with his brother. And I think that speaks volumes of the type of guy he is, where he could have got an injury and lost all of his draft capital, been an undrafted guy coming from a small school, but he stays, he balls out. He gets to experience that with his brother and really cement his legacy. And I think he's the highest drafted player from Central Arkansas, at least in the last 10, 15 years, if not all time. And if you look at my article up on Bucs Game Day, the picture I used for him was just destroying competition at the Senior Bowl, which is one thing we'll get into. That was a knock on him by a lot of people. But Walker's undersized but explosive and lives in the backfield. He's a strong run defender. His bull rush and speed to power is crazy. He displays aggressive hand usage, an array of pass rush moves, and a detailed pass rush plan. However, limited length will affect his ability to shed blockers in the run game and when wrapping up for the tackle. He'll get impatient with his hand placement, and lack of true competition at the FBS level leaves questions about how he'll perform against NFL starting caliber players. He did quell some of those concerns at the Senior Bowl by just destroying pretty much everyone he went up against. But his senior season, he had 68 tackles, 10.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and one of college's highest pass rush wins rates for an edge rusher. He had 82.5 career tackles for loss, and I think 36.5 sacks. I said it's easy to see why the Bucs would be interested in Walker, although he has a smaller frame than the team traditionally looks for. He knows how to use his natural leverage to wreak havoc in the backfield. Walker figures to contribute as a pass rush specialist at the next level and can carve out a rotational role quickly with his ability to get to the backfield. The ability to learn from Reddick would be excellent for his development, and he'd raise the floor of the Bucs linebacker room depth. Had a formal interview with the combine. Again, he's smaller than Reddick, but not by much. Reddick is 6'1", he's 6 foot. So another similar size edge rusher to learn from and kind of, hey, how did you go against this, against longer arm tackles, against these other guys? I think that's going to be really, really pivotal for his development. I don't know if he ever carves out a starting role, but a rotational role that can be a high impact player. Think of who's the guy that just signed with the Eagles last year? Didn't do anything.
Bryce Huff.
Yeah,
Bryce Huff. I think he has an ability to develop into that type of player. I mean, especially if, Reddick leaves next year, Braswell takes that jump. You have Yaya, you have Braswell, you have Walker in that rotational designated pass rusher role. I think he can be really good. Plus, what did you see on tape from this kid? Because it was a lot of fun to watch him. That's for damn sure. Especially going up against some of these teams. I mean, the Senior Bowl is more like what you wanted to look at, but like the college tape, you want to talk about the best player on the football field every time he was out there, it was him.
Yeah, for sure. David Walker. So I think it was the day before the draft, I finally got to dive into his tape. I was late on the process, but diving into his film, you could clearly see he was the best player on the field. He dominated his competition. And I think that's what you want to see from a small school, player. My only knocks on him, again, the size is smaller. He's an outlier as far as arm length and traits as far as that goes. But he and also 25 years old, so a little older prospect, but he has a very good IQ, very instinctive pass rusher, the ability to win with speed to power, already knows how to set the edge in the run game, can really be a physical player at the point of attack. So I think that gives him the opportunity to overcome those obstacles with his length, because he has the pass rush plan to win with power and do some different things. He can win on the outside as far as a high edge rusher, win on the high side. So he's got those things going for him. And then you add to the Senior Bowl week that he had, 2 sacks in the Senior Bowl game, showed the ability to dominate against better competition. So I think, and that also goes, like, if the Bucs weren't taking an edge rusher in round 1, I think this spot here in round 4 was a good time to do so, and a good time to add a guy that you obviously feel confident in. And we saw the reaction from Larry Foote. And I think Larry Foote sees a lot of, and this is a high praise. I don't know. This might be like the ceiling, if he can reach it, for David Walker, is James Harrison. And I think that's what he sees in David Walker. So hopefully that comes true. I mean, that'd be awesome. But I think at the very most, you have a guy that you can sub in on pass rushing situations, and he can provide some juice for you, provide some pass rush, and be a very solid player for years to come.
I think it's funny that you just brought him up, because he brought him up too in his interview, saying the people that he watches, James Harrison, Elvis Duvermill. There was another one I can't remember. But I mean, those are the guys that he's watching. And I asked him, a lot of people are kind of wondering about your how you do in like pass coverage, and he's like, that's what they did my last 2 years, because they wanted to show that I could do it. I was in pass coverage more than I wanted to be, and he's still got those numbers. Like, so he's able to drop, which Bowles is going to do no matter what, to everybody, and we just have to get used to it. Hopefully not at the rate he did last year, because that was crazy. But
and then I was gonna add, like, I think it just also shows that the Bucs are confident in Reddick. They're confident in Yaya Diaby taking those steps, and then Chris Braswell. Like, they want this guy to succeed and show the progress that they're hoping for. Being a second round pick, you you don't want to give up on those guys too soon. And I think that's why they didn't go edge early and often. I think they wanted to, make sure it was the right time to take an edge rusher, and they got this steal, I think, in my opinion, in the 4th round.
Yeah, I agree. And I see, I'm assuming you're partially there responding to KGH for Life's comments in the chat saying that he's very iffy about this draft. No pass rusher into round 4. I don't want to hear Bucs brass complain to the pass rusher when the season comes to an end. Braswell's ready to take that next step. I think Yaya Diaby, for a lot of the season, was trying to do everything by himself because he was constantly getting double teamed and chipped. And defenders, offenses were making sure he couldn't be a focal part of the defense. Still dominated with the pressures, but I mean, think of how many times that Diaby was that close if he didn't get chipped by a tight end on the way out or a back. How many sacks he would have racked up last year? And Hassan Reddick, like people are sleeping on him. I think he's truly a product of the Jets' chaos, dysfunctional organization. And after listening to love him or hate him, I'm certainly not a big fan. Respect his game as one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. The story that Aaron Rodgers told that came out about how they treated him was just disrespectful. So I'm really high on him too. I think that this edition and the one that we'll talk about next really provide a giant boost for this pass rush in the addition of keeping Anthony Nelson, signing Hassan Reddick as well. Tones, what were your thoughts on David Walker and his ability? What do you think his ability is to make a difference for the Bucs this season? Is it something that's going to be a slow roll, or do you think with his natural ability to get to the quarterback, there's going to be plays for him to get out there and showcase his talents?
Yeah, first and foremost, watching his highlight tape, the field he played on last year was like, my goodness, you get a headache. I know.
So hard to watch, man. And it's so grainy because it's not really good footage because it's not like a power school, so they don't
feels, it feels like you're in like a,
you're watching high school tape, bro. That's what it feels like.
It felt like a time zone or something, or just going back into time, like watching.
When we did the box TVs, when plasma first came out, you're like, "This is amazing!"
Exactly.
But watching his film, it was like a men amongst boys out there watching it, and I know it wasn't quite bowl eligible level of college football, but regardless, no matter what level you're playing at, the tape he put on display was incredible, and it's not like it was because his size was overpowering either. He's, normal size edge rusher coming at you, and he was blowing up defenders. I think it's going to be a little bit of a slow crawl for him to get involved in terms of making a big difference potentially. I don't know if he's going to come in day one this season and wreak havoc by any means, but I think midway through the season comes, some guys get banged up, his reps go up, his feet get a little more wet. I think you're going to see him on pass rushing downs specifically to start, and then maybe he'll earn his way onto the field a little bit more. But that's going to be a blessing. And all of a sudden, our edge room is looking a little bit more up, right? I think Braswell does take a step in the right direction. And the crazy thing is the Bucs have been loving the Senior Bowl of late. You saw last year they drafted a couple of guys like Braswell, like Tyke Smith, potentially because of the Senior Bowl. Obviously, they didn't draft Michael Pratt last year, but they liked what he did in the Senior Bowl and ended up adding him later on. Same with Kavion Merriweather as an undrafted free agent. So I think the Bucs kind of use the Senior Bowl. Yeah, VHS tape, that's for sure. But the Bucs kind of use the Senior Bowl as a token of appreciation and a good tool these days and a metric to kind of figure out how, they like some of these kind of lukewarm guys. And I think the Senior Bowl just made David Walker's draft stock in the Bucs war room go up that much more, kind of like a Robert Hainsey when they drafted him back in the day. And I think he's going to be a piece who you add to a loaded edge room that probably means Marquise Watts and or Jose Ramirez will be looking on the outside in at the end of the day. But none of those guys really have taken the next step to this point. They haven't really shown much life with the minimal opportunities they had. Not saying they can't grow, but you just love to see depth at the edge position. You sign a premier one like Reddick at least one point in life, and you take one with huge upside like David Walker, and you just know Jason Light had to get his small school draft pick in as well. He's always sneaking one of the small school guys in there. It just happened to be at the edge position this time where Usually he's picking from the premium trees, the Louisvilles, the Alabamas, the Washingtons of the world. Here he goes, and I like this. I think it only provides good things because he doesn't have to start day one. That's what makes it great. You're not expecting him, or you don't need him to come in here day one and be that impactful guy. You're kind of hoping, hey, if we do make the playoffs, or hey, 2026 comes around, he could be in a more elevated role at that point, because Hassan Reddick could easily be a one and done here. If he has a huge season, I really don't see the Bucs giving him a long-term contract. He might get the franchise tag if he has a great season, but regardless, you're going to have to refill him on the roster sooner rather than later, in my opinion, for better or worse. And Walker provides that in 2026, and in 2025, he provides some intrigue in third downs, third and longs, blitz packages. You could really pin his ears back and let him run at that point and see what he's capable of.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a solid piece.
And like I said, he's a pike. He's a pike. You can't go wrong with the pike, a Pi Kappa Alpha member. So I'm going to have to bring that up if I ever get the chance to talk to him. That was pretty cool. It's not every day. These football guys are so busy. That just goes to show the type of workload he could handle as well. I'm sure he got a little bit of a pass on some of the behind the scenes type of stuff. But when you're in a fraternity and you're in a college football program, the balance you have to have in your life, that's something that can't be overlooked. So I think they looked at David Walker's plate as well and said, this guy could handle a lot. We sure he can at the next level too. Sorry to cut you off, JC.
No, I think, I think there's a lot to like about his game. Again, we'll see if he can ever develop more with the size into more than just a rotational player. But I think immediately he gives you that, a guy who just knows how to get after the quarterback and can be part of that rotation, whether it's this year. I think he can crack that part of the rotation, have certain looks for him. Maybe it's somewhere where you put, Chris Braswell, Yaya Diaby, two guys that kind of win more with power, right? You put those guys on one side, and then you let David Walker and Hassan Reddick work on that side. So when you're rotating guys out, you're always going to either have Walker or Hassan in there, and you always have Braswell or Diaby on the other side, and you get Nelly some snaps in wherever you can too as well. And I think that builds a really strong 5-deep rotation at outside linebacker. And then you're right. They have Watts. They have Ramirez. I think they're still a little bit more higher on Ramirez. I think they don't think he's hit his upside. And that they said that much, mentioned him specifically yesterday and not Watts. So, you're kind of foretelling, these guys, they are very guarded to not make mistakes. But when you ask about someone and someone else comes up and the other one doesn't, now it's time to kind of start to speculate on that. And going back to FGH or HGH, KGH for life, about his pressure complaints, the Bucs didn't stop there. One thing that they talked about was how deep this draft was at defensive tackle, defensive end, those types of positions. Nowadays, edge rusher, defensive end gets crammed together a lot of the time. So it's sometimes it's hard to differentiate between who's going to be a 3-4 outside linebacker versus who's going to be a 4-3 defensive end versus who's going to be maybe flexible to play both, and who's maybe just a designated pass rusher for their career, not really can handle the responsibilities of a 3-4 outside linebacker, and maybe not big enough to be in every consistent 4-3 defensive end. So it muddies the water here, and it muddied the water for me because I didn't have him. And it's the thing that hurts too is because I looked at Jared Ivey and Ja Joyner, and two guys, similar guys, right? Could be those defensive ends, maybe, but kind of project a little bit as outside linebackers as well. Right. This guy, I jumped over him. I skipped him. I didn't focus on him, but Elijah Roberts from SMU was the pick here at 157 in the 5th round. Man, when you look at him, when you look at him through a different lens, boy, oh boy, does he get you excited. Not only did he lead FBS the last 2 seasons in pressures with 131, which was the most by far, he also led the FBS this year in win percentage. Yes, that's over Abdul Carter as well. He just knows how to get back there, and it's unconventional at times, but he just knows how to get back there. Really liked him. He didn't test well at the combine, because of certain things. He didn't. But you turn the tape, Pless, and you see it's a real deal. My scouting report on him is Roberts is a very lengthy, versatile defensive lineman with a devastating bull rush when converting speed to power. He's a methodical player who wins with excellent technique, impressive awareness, and instincts, and a nasty counter move to create wins when his rush stalls, especially going on one-on-one against guards that counter over the he sets the edge with authority and displays the ability to quickly diagnose blocking schemes. However, he's not going to win with speed. His first step is average, and he lacks the bend to threaten the corner, which is why I didn't look at him as an edge, which he was listed in multiple places. He's not super twitchy, will struggle to change direction quickly, and needs refinement in his tackle technique with a 21% missed tackle rate over the last 2 seasons. Not great, but it's slippery when wet down there in the middle of inside when you're working. So stuff that I think he can fix. He was a team captain and a leader. He's got a motor that never stops. You see him pursuing guys down the backside of the play. He finished his final year at SMU with 35 tackles, 11 for a loss, 7.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles and a pass breakup. This season prior in 2023, 37 tackles, 12.5 for a loss, 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 pass breakups. I wrote how he fits is Roberts can be an immediate part of rotations along the defensive line with the versatility to line up anywhere and create pressure. He likely fits the Bucs in a similar role to what Will Ghostum played last season, taking on those reps. Logan Hall is also in a contract year, so bringing a similar style player to develop behind him and still contribute in a rotational role is good value for the Bucs and a great fit here, great value in the 5th round. He didn't have any known pre-draft communication with the Bucs, and even said as much. Did the tape tell the same tale? What did you think when you saw this? I know you heard Logan Hall replacement and your eyes perked up, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say Logan Hall is being put on notice right now. He better step up. He better step up this year.
5.5 sacks last year in a rotation role.
Consistency, my man. Consistency. He better bring it. He better bring it this year because Elijah Roberts, of what I've seen, I haven't fully dived into his tape, but just watching his highlights and clips and the ability, the pass rush plan, the ability to play against the run. He's got the size profile that they want at the 5 tech, and he can be versatile enough to play on the outside. Yeah, I didn't look into this player because I thought he was going to be gone by round 3. That's what I thought. Yeah, because when I watched from other people talk about him, Trevor Sycamore had him as a top 100 player on his board, and I thought he was going to be gone because he just brings you so much. I know he's kind of a tweener, doesn't really have a true defined position, but he can play anywhere across the front 7, and the numbers speak for themselves. So the tape is good. And again, I just feel like he's got the right mindset to come in here and push for playing time right away.
Nice. And Tones, I mentioned Will Golston replacement. Probably likely Will starting his own. He's got a business now, a restaurant and a club that a cigar lounge that he's opening. Do you think this is time to hang it up for Big Will Golston, or do you think there's a possibility he's asked to come back for another year, or do you think with the drafting of Elijah Roberts is there's no need? You've got a younger guy who can fill the same role.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I'm very familiar with Elijah Roberts. He had 2 sacks against my Nittany Lions in that playoff game. He brought the motor, he brought the heat. And when we drafted him, I kind of said something similar. I was watching the draft with my pops, who's a Bucs fan too, and I said, this could be the end of Will Golston. This could be his replacement type. And nothing against Will, but I think his only option would even be at this point kind of like a late season Shaq Barrett type desperation deal if the Bucs are ever put in that sort of pinch, or maybe if he would ever, want to swallow some pride and go on a practice squad type role, maybe, but his role would be minimal at this point. I don't see, sadly, Will Golston maintaining any meaningful snaps after this Elijah Roberts pick. And when you look at him, his interview, his tape and all that, he's excited. You could tell he was one of them. All the guys were excited, but he was genuinely thankful. He was thanking the reporter, thank you guys for taking it.
Thank you for drafting us. We had nothing to do with it, man.
That was awesome.
You're here too, but I didn't do it.
Exactly. He gets to stay near his home of Miami. You could tell he was very excited about that as well. And Kalijah Cansey, he's familiar with. He said he whipped his butt in high school. But he even noted Kalijah Cansey's stats from that game. Yeah, I think he had a sack. I think he had a scoop score maybe in that game.
We blew him out is what he said.
Yeah, he had to give him his credit after, say, the blowout thing. But the bottom line is you could tell he's amped to be a Buck. He's excited to be a Buck. His versatility is going to be incredible. Could line up on the D-line, could line up at an edge, could kind of fit in that scheme day one. And Todd Bowles loves his versatility with the front seven especially. He moves guys around all the time, kind of that amoeba type defense at some points when he's trying to throw people off with his coverage and blitzing scheme. So I know dropping some of the big boys back drives people crazy, but you've seen David Walker say he could handle being drop back. Roberts, I don't envision being drop back nearly as much, but you just never know where he fits in, where he plays. And I think one of the big reasons SMU had such a successful season last year is Roberts defensively getting after quarterbacks and playing in the ACC. It's not no easy task for anyone. And I like his size too. He's a little more mature, comes in at 23 years young, 6'4", 270 plus pounds, big boy, formerly
bulked up. He bulked up at his pro day. He's up to 292 now.
Yeah.
292, so that's even better.
285. I think it was at 285 at the combine, 292 now. So, I mean, it took Logan Hall 3 years to get to 300 pounds. Like, this guy seems like he'll be able to do it this offseason.
Even better, music to my ears. So 2 seasons at SMU, 17 and a half total sacks. Really can't beat that production. And a bulk up, great by me. So I love his football athleticism. I love his excitement to join the team. I like those type of guys, right? Nothing against the guys who mope that they, sat around a little bit, but I like the opposite. I like the guys who are excited no matter where they're picking. Roberts fits the bill for a Bulls type defense. He's great in run stopping ability too. So I think that's going to be a big plus for him. Carolina's going to be running the football. Atlanta's going to be running the football. Who the heck knows what New Orleans plans are? But you're going to get a lot of running games in the NFC South, and I think Roberts is one of the X factors for the NFC South running battle plans.
Yeah, I was just going to add real quick. I think Roberts just gives you another option if Kalijah Cansey's out of the game. So that's huge because it gives you a guy that can play the 3 tech and give you that pass rush burst. Because we saw last year when either Vita or Kalijah were out of the game, we just didn't have anybody else to win one-on-ones. And this guy gives you an opportunity to win one-on-ones. And that's huge to have that in your back pocket.
And Greg Auman tweeted out our D-line room's pretty much up to a battle of the 6th spot between a couple of those veterans now, Brewer, Gostis, couple of those guys. So our D-line room pretty much looks set.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. And again, they could add to it, but I think they got a score here, and how many people were complaining about seeing Greg Gaines with extended time. I think he provides a versatile piece that can play across the line and really give you can win one-on-ones against guards. He'll struggle to disengage from double teams, but he'll soak the blockers up to allow that linebacker, but he's not going to be able to really shed double teams. His best bet is just kind of hold on and let the linebacker run free, and not let the center of the guard climb to the next level. So like them, really approve. We'll get into our final 7th round pick. We'll jump on UDFAs real quick, and I'll get you guys out here with your final grades for this draft. Again, if you're just joining, another episode of Pirate Parlay here. We're in a draft recap show on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm JC Allen, joined by the wonderful Tampa Tones here from the Buccaneers, and Michael Pless from Real Bucs Talk. We're going through these picks one by one. If you're just joining now, go ahead, start in the beginning. Give me my scouting report. Pless is telling us what he saw on his tape. He's got his breakdowns up there. And then Tones is giving us awesome insight as well on how they might fit on the roster going forward. So round, again, 78 picks we had to wait. It was a very long time. You want to know what started to happen? I'll give you some you guys want some inside scoop here for what was going on in the media room? All right, so for the media room, we were sitting there, and another Jalen Reed came off the board, which made 10 Jalens in the draft. Intrigue set in. How many other people are named? So I stayed out of this because I was writing my stories, but I was still talking part of the conversation, but I wasn't looking it up. a couple of the media people started getting on their computer and started looking up most names by birth date, or like when was the most popular. So they like ran through half the names. It was crazy. We just kept shouting out names. What about Taylor? What about Justin? Like, what about this one? And it's just, so that's what happened. That's how most of us kept ourselves busy, was by researching baby names, because there were so many Jalen's in this draft. Little insight, little intrigue for you. But it was long, but it finally came around. Bucs were on the clock at pick 235, and boom! Hit you again with another best fit in the draft. I was shocked he was there. I had Josh Capo on Wednesday right before the draft show. He did not like my best fit here in the fourth round. In the fourth round for the Buccaneers, that slot wide receiver, which was, of course, we know Tez Johnson. So tremendous value. And really the biggest reason he slid was because of his size. If you look at him, scouting report, Tez Johnson from out of Oregon, former teammate with Bucky Irving, 5'9", 154, fifth-year senior. Johnson is a quick, explosive slot receiver who, despite his size, knows how to win. He can start and stop on a dime, utilizing sharp cuts to create instant separations from defenders, and most separation of any defender last year. Right up there with Ibuka, a crisp route runner who knows how to use his leverage and plays with good tempo and awareness to find the soft spots in the defense, and is that strong at the catch point, lethal with the ball in his hands. He gets up the top speed quickly and is a threat in the return game as well. Despite that, his size does present limitations when facing more physical corners on press and through physical corners to the route. When he's asked to block, of course, he's not going to be much of a blocker. He'll struggle with contested catch situations and has a smaller catch radius. He'll too frequently double catch or body corral passes, leading to drops. Also focus drops when he's trying to just turn and run without holding the ball. But his drop rate wasn't crazy at all by any means. It wasn't like this guy just dropped passes. I think he had like 4 drop passes last year. So it's just like, sometimes throughout his career, he'll have trouble with that. Johnson was a high-volume target and reeled in 83 receptions for 898 yards and 10 touchdowns in his final year at Oregon. How he fits with the Bucs: he's a small, speedy wideout who can do damage from the slot. He knows how to run sharp routes and leverages corners to get open. He's a weapon in the screen game with the ability to rip off big runs due to his size, speed, and elusiveness. He'll also bring that ability on end arounds, jet sweeps, all these different things he'll be able to be a part of. And he brings that different element to the Bucs offense with that gadget-like player that they wanted Cam Johnson to be as he develops into more rounded receiver. Again, electric return ability as well on top of that. And he did have a formal interview with the Bucs at the Combine. The Bucs obviously had an inside source on how this guy is as a person, talking to Bucky, and they take his word extremely high. Because of the character he is. We were talking to Tez Johnson. And he's like, oh, me and Bucky, we're going to compete to be who the first one's there. And he's like, Bucky's there at 4:00 trying to beat Todd Bowles and Tom Moore. So it's just funny. You look at what he was able to do in college as well at Troy. He had his freshman season cut short due to COVID, but he was productive the next 2 seasons. He had 2 years of eligibility left. He made a decision to transfer to Oregon. And really for the fact, he's got a really cool backstory. He had a really rough childhood growing up. His father, was out of his life earlier, unalived himself. And he was with his mom, and he has, 3 other siblings. And he was really kind of having trouble finding his way in life, dealing with the trauma, but found sports as a way of escape. And, he started playing at 6 years old. And then when he got into high school, hanging out with the wrong kind of characters, grades were slipping. He met Coach Patrick Nix, which, if you know who his son is, Bo Nix, the quarterback of the Denver Broncos. And, he really helped him get him back on track. He's like, if you need to move in with us to get away from the environment you can. And what turned into just a temporary move turned into a permanent one. And he became like their adopted son. He went to the same high school as Nix, and he's a year younger. But when they started playing high school to get football together, he wasn't just his best friend off the field, but now on the field, and they just produced like crazy. When he finally got that opportunity to transfer to Oregon to play with him again, they picked up right where they left off. His junior season, he had 86 receptions, which was a school record, 1,182 yards and 10 touchdowns. Last year, again, another good year, 83 receptions, 898 yards, and 10 touchdowns. And over the past 2 seasons, he's led all FBS players in yards after the catch with 1,353 yards. A lot of good energy with this guy. I really like him. I like what I see on tape. The combine measurements kind of, the agility was off the charts. The explosive, the broad jump vertical, off the charts. The 40 was 4.5. Obviously, the size is going to kill him right away, 154 pounds. But when you turn the tape on, you see the fastest player on the field every single time. Right, Pless?
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's explosive. I mean, he's fast on tape. That was easy to take away. And he was another guy that I thought, the Bucs wouldn't be able to take because I thought he would have gone sooner. I think with his ability, I thought he would have been, early day 3 at the latest. And I think, teams get turned off because of the size concerns, obviously. But when you look at the tape, he was a good football player. Ability to separate, again, another separator. That's something that plays in this scheme. I think if you're looking for his best ceiling, it's probably Tank Dell. I think that's what you're hoping for if he becomes that type of player. I think Tutu Atwell is another good good comparison. So he can definitely play the Z in this scheme. I think he could play the F. Those are probably his 2 spots. But yeah, he can easily separate. And for this season, if he wants to make the team, I think he's going to be the punt returner. Like, he's going to be special teams, a guy that can return kicks and make plays that way. But he's going to bring the level of play of the bottom of the barrel for receivers like Trey Palmer. He's on notice. Cam Johnson on notice. Raheem Jarrett, sorry, I think you're gone. These guys, like, they're going to have to bring it to make the team because Tez Johnson's a good football player that could easily find a way on the roster.
Yeah, and Tones, you look at, the depth chart, top of the depth chart, Mike and Chris, 1-2, 1A, 1B, you're asking me. I think Ibuka wins that 3rd job. Again, Jalen McMillan turned it on last year, really good 3rd-round pick, 1st-round pick, true 1st-round pick. The talent is going to supersede what Jalen McMillan can provide. Still a good play. He's still going to get a lot of run, but there's your top 4. And now you're down to 2 spots, and you've got a guy like Tez Johnson, who they drafted, who, as Pless mentioned, and in college he had 8.9 yards per punt return at an 85-yard touchdown. And he's not a small guy who's going to run out of bounds. Jalen Darden, he's going to actually try to fight for some extra yardage, but he also knows when to go down. You watch Tyler Lockett, a lot of film. He told us that he watches Bucky Irving highlights to get himself jacked before games, or workouts. That's awesome. But there's a battle right there, and it's not just Tez Johnson. It's Sterling Shepard, who they re-signed. It's Trey Palmer, who's a 6th-round pick from 2 years ago, who's got that high-end speed. Raheem Jarrett, Ryan Miller, who is steady Eddie, blocks his ass off, and really showed up for them. They've got Tanner Canoe, they got Marquez Callaway with a full season and not opportunity. They brought in another wide receiver in Garrett Green, who's a former quarterback, ran for 2,000 yards last season as an undrafted free agent in this year. And then also Will Shepard, who's kind of got that similar style. And one of his mentors is Mike Evans. So they've got a lot of guys vying for that spot right there. How do you think this shakes out? Is Tez's only way to get a job on this team by winning kick return? And who do you think's got that 5 and 6, the inside track to 5 and 6 right now, if you had to say?
Well, it's interesting as well because we do have a new offensive coordinator, and I was on Real Bucs Talk the other night with JT Olson of Bucs Report, and he was saying how, hey, maybe this offense changes a little bit, carry 1 less tight end and 1 more wide receiver. So we'll see if that's a possibility as well, where a guy like Keefe sadly is maybe made expendable in the new offense, the new style. So we'll see if it truly stays at that amount of wide receiver spots or if 1 more does appear to grow. But you're thinking Tez Johnson is obviously going to be the lead man on getting opportunities as a punt returner out of the gate, maybe kick returner as well, but definitely punt returner. The Bucs had to be one of the worst, if not the worst, punt return unit in the league last year. Trey Palmer had a golden opportunity on his doorstep to be given the return job and didn't just do much with it. So I think surely They're looking to upgrade their special teams wise, and that's how you make your way onto the roster is special teams as a day 3 draft pick, specifically round 6 and 7. If you're effective on special teams, you're going to be earning a roster spot. So I think almost Tez Johnson, unless he does something insanely bad or has a really bad preseason, I think he's pretty much locked in for a roster spot at this point. So to me, it really comes down to that last battle. And, Baker Mayfield and Sterling Shepard connection might get him that. So I think this wide receiver room could be done. And I'm going to love seeing – you're not going to see him on offense a ton, especially at the beginning of the year, as you alluded to, JC. All the guys in front of him on the depth chart, he's going to have quite the hill to climb on that. But you can make him specific plays, kind of like they tried to do with Scotty Miller his last year in Tampa. None of those plays seemed to work too well. But kind of, they tried to get him his special packages. His
like 4 or 5 plays a game, 3-4 plays a game with special things. And once he's like caught out, yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. Yep.
Those bubble screens, those end arounds, you could put him in the backfield at the same time with the Bucky Irvin out of shotgun. Imagine that, Baker in shotgun. You got Bucky back there. You got Tez back there. Then on the outsides, you got Mike Chris. You got McMillan. You got Emeka. So the opportunities are endless. And, he's going to get his fair share. And I was going to mention that, too, the Bucky tape. Really cool how much he keeps up with Bucky, Bo Nix. Yeah. They're all like brothers at this point. So I thought it was interesting. You never really mentioned Dylan Gabriel much at all in his
1-year transfer guy.
No, I agree. But, the amount of love he gave to some of those other guys, that's what I'm saying. It spoke testament to Bucky.
Well, Nix is like a brother for him, and Bucky was, on the Bucs. So, I mean, if they
but I didn't realize how close he was with Bucky until
that's awesome. And then Bucky posted something up with them too. I mean, those two are going to be fun together. They got small guys with big personalities. I definitely love that.
Bunnies. Like they said, Energizer bunnies.
Absolutely. I want to just point out to this comment from Ryan Donnelly over here. He said, people are sleeping on McMillan. You will be surprised on the production he will bring this year. I don't think anyone's sleeping on McMillan. I like McMillan. I liked McMillan last year. He was the best fit for me. Everyone on this panel, everyone in this chat likes McMillan. Go watch a Buca film. Go watch Pless's breakdown. That's all I got to say. I'm not going to get into it back and forth with anybody. Go watch Pless's breakdown of Ibuka and tell me that you don't think that he can surpass McMillan on the depth chart early on. That's all I got to say. Linebacker. Yeah, good competition. It's going to be a great competition between them. McMillan might take over, but by the end of year 1, I think Ibuka is that. Linebacker was one spot everybody wanted to see. The Bucs did not take one. We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, with the options. I talked about it with Greg. The options ran dry. First round, Campbell injury. Second round, Schwesh, 1 year of production. Special teams ace before that. Demetrius Knight, 25, has some limitations. He was a guy I liked in the 3rd round or potentially the 4th round. I didn't like him in the 2nd round. I still don't like him in the 2nd round. And then after that, you had Carter, Pupal, Bossa, as all guys that people liked. And they didn't go until the 5th round, and in Pupal's case, the 6th round. I'm digging in to try to figure that. So, again, I get people wanted a linebacker. It just was a bad class. They can look at it at another time. There are some linebackers still out on the field. J.J. Russell is someone they could bring back if they wanted to, and they did sign one in undrafted free agency. So let's jump into undrafted free agency before we get on out of here and get your final grades. But the Bucs did agreed to sign 4 undrafted free agents, rookies so far. First one was Connor Bazelak out of Bowling Green. I'm probably going to butcher some of these names. Running back Josh Williams out of LSU. Wide receiver Garrett Green, who we just mentioned, from West Virginia. Former quarterback turned wide receiver, a la the Julian Edelman route. Wide receiver Will Shepard from Colorado. Again, he calls Mike Evans his mentor. They're pretty close off the field. Tight end Anthony Lanphier from Memphis. Have to look more into him. I'm going to try to get you guys scouting reports on these guys. There's 14, so I'll try to do 7 one and 7 on the other. And it won't be as detailed, but just a strength and a weakness and maybe a fun fact and stats. I'll try to get that up for you guys by Wednesday. Here's some fun ones. Ben Scott from Nebraska. Jason Lett gets a Nebraska guy. Jake Majors and Ben Chukwama. Jake Majors from Texas and Ben Chukwama from Georgia State. Chukwama got the highest guarantees and the highest signing bonus out of anybody. around like $300-something, pretty much guaranteeing him a spot on this team, at least on the practice squad, if not make cracking. And Jake Majors was right up there too. I think he was like 9 or 8 out of 10. And I like Jake Majors a lot. I like Jonah Monheim more, and that's why I went with Jonah Monheim as my fit in the 7th round, just because Jake has only played center. Jonah has played center and right guard as well, so it gives you that versatility along the interior. I'm sure they will cross-train Majors at guard as well, but for college sake, he only played but he's a hoss. He's a big guy. Speaking of hosses, speaking of big guys, Desmond Watson, the defensive tackle from Florida. The Bucs drafted the smallest player in the draft and then signed the largest player in NFL history, the heaviest player in Desmond Watson, 464 pounds, right up the street from Georgia. He's got about a 45-minute commute from a hour and 20-minute commute from Gainesville if he's still up there. Then they went back to Nebraska. Jason Light loves those Cornhuskers, and they took John Bullock, the linebacker. So they did add one linebacker. They added Roman Parody out of Ohio, who killed his pro day. Ryan Coe out of Cal, because hey, you need a kicker for rookie mini camp, and no one needs to be complacent in their role. Push everybody. The next two guys are two fun ones. JJ Roberts out of Marshall, the safety. He was my best fit in the 7th round, so count it. And then prime time son. The other son, the one that he doesn't care about as much, Shiloh Sanders from Colorado, big boom hitting safety, brings a hit stick. And for bonus points, they also invited another 7th round best fit of mine in Jordan McLeod to a tryout for rookie minicamp. So I'll give you a little boom there too for it. But guys, your thoughts on the undrafted free agents? I haven't looked over them a ton because I got like 3.5 hours sleep yesterday. I had to wake up early. My son had a football game. They won in a walk-off play. It was so cool. Like that was the first time there's a core moment for them. They've won before, but like a win in that faction where like the game's over, you've just won on this last play. It was awesome. But I didn't get much sleep. But so I haven't done much digging into these guys as much. I do know the big names. What about you, Pless? What do you know about these guys here? Who are you excited for? Who jumps off the page for you?
Yeah, a couple standouts here. The offensive linemen, Jake Majors, Ben Scott, and Ben. How do you pronounce it? Chewakma or
Chukuma? I think
Chukuma. Okay, yeah,
W silent.
Yeah, those stand out for me. Jake Majors, I've seen other people talk about him, give him high praise. Seems like a very intelligent player on the field, and they need a backup center. So you bring in two guys to add competition there and give you interior depth. And then Chukuma looks like an athletic tackle that has potential to be a swing tackle, for them and add competition for Charlie Heck. So those guys stand out right away. JJ Roberts is another one that I think has potential to make this team. I was predicting him to be the 7th round pick yesterday. I thought he was going to be their guy. But to get him as an undrafted free agent, I think is a big win. Super athletic, and I think he plays the style that they're looking for at safety. So, yeah, I think he's got a shot to be maybe the 4th, maybe 5th safety on the team if they go that way. Shiloh Sanders and Desmond Watson. Shiloh, I haven't really seen much of. So, again, I think him just coming in and competing, that will be great. Desmond Watson, I don't think he's going to make the team personally. Maybe as a practice squad candidate, most likely. I think they're bringing him in just to see what his trajectory is, see if he can lose some weight, get in better shape as far as conditioning. When you watch him at Florida, I watched every snap of him at Florida because I am a Gators fan. So just watching him, he's just a big body. Huge human to move, and he can really hold his ground, run defense. I think he has it in the bag there. Doesn't really offer much as a pass rusher, so you're not really getting much there. That will be an intriguing one to watch in preseason. If he does get preseason snaps, that will be someone to watch. But really, the offensive lineman is what sticks out to me, and JJ Roberts.
Yeah, I like JJ Roberts a lot too. I'm right there with you, actually.
Yeah.
I'll give you my quick little scouting report on him. JJ Roberts out of Marshall, 5'11", 192, fifth-year senior. Roberts is violent coming downhill and run support, but also has a range, explosion, and burst to make plays on the ball. He has experience in man and zone schemes at both corner and safety, and plays with good depth and awareness and coverage. However, he'll try to blow up ball carriers instead of wrapping them up, which can lead to missed tackles. He can get caught peeking into the backfield, losing his man in coverage. Because of his lack of mass, he can struggle and press and at the catch point. Roberts closed out his final season with 94 tackles, 5 for loss, a sack, a forced fumble, and 14 pass breakups. He had 3 interceptions over his 5-year collegiate career. How he fits with the Bucs is Roberts has more versatility to the Bucs defensive back end with his ability to play safety and bump out on the perimeter. He plays with attitude and tested well at his pro days, showing athletic traits that are worth taking a risk on. And the Bucs hosted him for an official 30 visit. I do like him a lot. I think he's going to be someone who can potentially crack this team. And then I'll go to you here, Tones. Tobias Stark, one of our good friends over in Germany, he says, can Shiloh Sanders compete with Merriweather? And I'm going to add JJ Roberts to that too. Going through this list of undrafted free agents, do you think Dez and Shiloh have a chance to make the team? Do you think they have a chance to maybe uproot Merriweather? What are your thoughts on the class as a whole?
Yeah, I spent a good amount of time last night going through the UDFA class and the roster or the training camp invites to this point. So I made my notes and highlights on a couple of these guys. JJ Roberts, one of them specifically. He reminds me of Javon Hagan, the safety the Bucs brought in the year they won the Super Bowl in 2020. Hagan was a safety out of Ohio, and he played some pivotal snaps down the stretch against Green Bay in the playoffs, actually, because the Bucs were that short pressed for safety play. Roberts had 94 tackles last season at Marshall, which is a pretty absurd number for a guy like him. So I'm looking for him to make at least an impact, stick around this year, maybe not play a lot, but be a depth piece the Bucs could pivot to. Nothing against Marcus Banks and Rashad Wisdom, but they didn't really take a step up last year. I think JJ Roberts looks to put himself ahead of those two guys on the practice squad at the very least. I like that move a lot. Another mini camp invite I like is CJ James, a center out of UTSA. He played at New Mexico as well. He's 6'3", 310 plus pounds. He's going to have an upward battle because they did give a couple other UDFA offensive linemen big contracts, like we mentioned Chakuma, and we also mentioned Majors as well. They were 2 of the top 7 paid UDFAs to point. But I do like what CJ James brings to the table. He brings a big stature at center. He's a people mover. You know, the ride at Disney, that's what he reminds me of. Watch some of his film. He moves people. At least he did at UTSA. So I'm interested to see how he battles. Ryan Coe, I took some notes on as well, the kicker from Cal. To me, this one's interesting. I think the Bucs nabbed him because they feel comfortable, like he won't get nabbed. 4 out of 7 on 50-plus yard field goals last year. He kind of fits a McLaughlin-type build as a kicker where he's made on those longer kicks, on those bigger kicks. And I think the Bucs know that he won't be poached from their practice squad, so they're going to give him every opportunity to learn from Chase McLaughlin and kind of give them that practice squad option of a kicker if need. Connor Baselick, the quarterback, I actually was chatting with him on X a little bit yesterday, welcomed him to Tampa. He replied right away that he was excited. So the quarterback out of Bowling Green, I watched his game against Penn State last year. He was 25 of 39, 254 yards, a couple of touchdowns at 126 quarterback rating. He could hang in there. He had a very, very good season. I know it's a MAC, but MACtion needs attention too. Don't forget Tuesday night college football, ladies and gentlemen. He was a star. He barely turns the ball over. He's 6'3", 212 pounds. He just gets the job done. So I think he could stick around on the practice squad as QB4, potentially see how that goes. Chance Williams, they invited to camp out of Charlotte. He had 4 sacks last season. He used to play at Miami with Elijah Roberts, fellow Bucs draft pick. He's a bigger guy as well, 6'5", 260 plus pounds. So you know, his stats wasn't there, but I think you could develop a guy like Chance potentially. I know he's only an invitee, but I think he can make some noise and stick around as a practice squad body. I talked with him a little bit yesterday, congratulated him as well. And then Watson and Shiloh. regardless if they make the team or not. Two big names, intriguing names. And I think Shiloh, did you see his video? You kind of felt bad for, he really thought he was going to get drafted, but he was excited. The Bucs signed him. Him and Prime celebrated. Shador joined the celebration. So I really think the Bucs had a great UDFA period and mini camp invitee period to this point. A lot of these guys are to highlight. And even if a Des Watson, even if a Shiloh Sanders don't make the active, they could be effective names on a practice squad. The Bucs, how many times the past couple of years they had to call up a D lineman in a pinch? You know, the Brewers of the world. Before that, you had the kid from Atlanta, Deadrian Sanat, you know. So we'll see if these guys could stick around on the practice squad and maybe get their chance to play a game or two here in 2026.
Yeah, for me, it's Jake Majors, Ben Chakuma, and JJ Roberts. I think have the best possibility at landing spots on the roster. We got about 800 people in here watching this on a Sunday afternoon. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you guys for choosing to come hang out with us here on a Sunday afternoon. Like, subscribe, turn notifications. We have a bunch of you guys on Twitter. I'll drop the link. Just come over here, like and subscribe, man. Come on. There's about 100, almost 200 people in the chat. Hit that like button. I think we've got like 5 likes up right now. So do me a favor. It helps just get me in front of other people, other Bucs fans like yourself. So we'll wrap this up real quickly. I'm going to go to, as I have done throughout the show, Pless first. Give me your grade on this draft overall, and then go ahead and promote yourself and where they can find all your work.
Yeah, I have it as a grade. I think they just got solid football players, like I said in the beginning. So yeah, A for sure. And really good offseason so far. I think they're trajectorying into the right direction to be one of the top NFC teams this year. So that's going to be cool to see, and I can't wait for preseason. But yeah, thank you, JC, for having us on, and appreciate the time. And yeah, be sure to check us out at Real Bucs Talk. We have a couple film studies up. We have the first 3 picks for the Bucs, and Abuka, Morrison, and Jacob Parrish up on film study. We have a smaller video on David Walker, but we're going to get into the tape. I'm going to take a little hiatus here today. I'm going to rest up. I'm going to catch up on my TV shows, watch a little Andor, maybe Last of Us later tonight. So
Andor.
Yeah. So I am looking forward to that, and can't wait to dive into the tape of the rest of this class. But yeah, really solid job.
I appreciate you so much. Tones, what about you? What would you give the Bucs a grade for this weekend? And go ahead and promote yourself as well.
I give them an A as well, because they didn't draft based on needs. They didn't reach, right? I think we saw that. So that's always a good thing. They drafted really good football players and even better human beings, it seems like. So when that's the case, it's hard not to give them an A. They drafted a lot of good talent on the board. And again, never reaching on needs is a great thing. I think they tried to fill that with undrafted free agents. You could find us at Buccaneers. Find me at Tampa Tones over on the Buccaneers, kind of like Pless. I'm going to take the rest of the day and unplug myself. The past 3 days have been awesome, but a lot of good work. And we're actually working on having a couple of these mini camp invitees and undrafted free agents on the Buccaneers as well. So be on the lookout for that. Right now we're going live on Wednesday and Sundays more so, but during the season we're Tuesday and Saturday. So yeah, I'm excited to get a couple of these young rookies, hopefully as soon as this week on the program, and talking with them a little Bucs ball. And JC, awesome having me. Awesome coverage, man. You killed it all weekend. You're one of the best in the biz, so appreciate getting to chop it up with you, plus Greg Auman and the rest.
I appreciate you coming on, man. Take some time, enjoy yourself. The draft drains us all. So
yeah, I'm going to play some basketball, and after that, be a couch potato.
Do it. All righty. Thanks, man. All right, that's gonna do it for us, guys. I mean, a tremendous show. We went for almost 2 hours. We're coming up on the 2-hour mark right now. Again, about 800 of you guys, 600 and some odd live right now, watching live on Twitter. Another 150 to 200 watching live now on YouTube, and I'm sure people have popped in and out throughout the show. I appreciate everybody. We'll cut a bunch of this stuff up too, and we'll get it for shorts for the YouTube channel, obviously for Twitter and stuff. So if you guys, just want some little pieces or whatnot, you can get that too. But go tell other people, our podcast is legit. I've had head coaches, offense coordinators. I've Jason Light, Todd Bowles, Dave Canales, Liam Cohen. I got to talk to Josh Grizzard because if he wants a head coaching job, he obviously has to come on the podcast. But Tristan Wirfs, Antoine Winfield Jr., Rashad White, Graham Barton, Luke Gedicke, Cody Moak, Yaya Diaby, Clyde Jacansey's coming on soon. Servassier Dennis. I've had so many guys on this podcast, and I'm going to continue to bring you guys players. I'm already in contact with some of the rookies on here to get them on too as well. So guys, appreciate everyone for tuning in. Again, tell other people this is one of the best podcasts out there. I know there's so many to choose from, in my opinion, but appreciate the follows, appreciate the likes, appreciate everyone who's going to be listening. This is a long listen. I won't be mad if you fast forward me to 1.2, 1.5 speed throughout this podcast when you're re-listening to it. Because it's a long one to listen to, but I think we covered every pick. We covered every UDFA. We had Greg Auman to open the show with a heavy hitter, closing it out with Tones, and Pless, who just gave phenomenal feedback, especially Pless with his ability to, with his tape breakdowns and what he saw in there, and the ability to convey that in a concise manner that you guys understand. And Tones, he's a fan. He's very knowledgeable, knows his stuff, but he's a fan. So getting someone who knows his stuff and probably could be doing what I'm doing if he had the time, the want to, the will. I don't know if he wants to be a writer or anything, but does his podcast, and probably could be doing a similar thing if he really wanted to, because he's a very knowledgeable fan, and I love having that perspective as well. So I appreciate the heck out of y'all. I went 5 for 5 in this draft. I missed on one. I started 4 for 4 in my best fits. And that's what the goal was to identify prospects and players the Bucs could like, that the Bucs could target. Some of those guys that they didn't take were on their board. Some of them they weren't. But that was always a goal. I never in my wildest dreams expected to hit on so many. But it was a great year. I had 3 last year, 2 this year. So I had Culp, Tyke, and McMillan, and then 5, and then the UDFA hit to bring it up to 6. Just proud of myself, and I'm so happy that I was able to get those guys out there for you guys too. So you knew, like, hey, these are the guys the Bucs look for, and we'll do that every year. We'll continue doing it every year. The Pats killed the draft too. Thanks, Grizz. I see you down there. But yeah, for me, it's time to take a break. I have a roster recap series coming that I'm going to do. Where does the roster sit now? I want to do some scouting breakdowns on these guys. I'm going to get my grades out there too, in written form. I'm waffling right now between a B+ and an A. Just little things I want to just kind of look at, tweak a little bit, and see where I finally settle after. My brain has time to process because I had to wake up early. My daughter had cheerleading fittings, so I was up and out the house early. I'm probably on 7 hours of sleep between the last 2 nights. I'm exhausted, but we'll have all that content and more, and we'll be live back here on Wednesday at 7 p.m. I don't know what we're going to be doing, who we got on as a guest. Maybe we'll dig up one of these draft analysts and get their thoughts, or maybe we'll do another more roundtable like having the 3 guys on here. It was a lot of fun. But hey, appreciate every single one of you guys, for real. You guys, I'm not doing this without y'all. So appreciate the love, support you've given me. As a writer, as a podcast, as an insider, you guys are part of the reason I do this. So appreciate everybody. I'm going to go relax. No, I'm not. I promised my daughter I'd bring her to the pool. So I'm going to go to the pool, and then I'm going to relax, catch up on some SmackDown. Got to catch up on Andor. Hasn't even started yet. And there's a couple other shows that I need to catch up on too. So yeah, I'm going to take a bit of a break here today and tomorrow, and we'll be back at it on Tuesday. I'll be active on X still, of course. I can't not do that, but yeah, a little bit of a break from everything else. But appreciate you guys. That's going to do it for us here on another episode of the Pirate Parlay podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm your host, JC Allen, and we're out. Peace. Enjoy your Sunday. Draft is done.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.